So obviously, last one out, a big win over a recognizable name, a guy that had a lot of respect. Did that feel like a special win for you?
Yeah, Jourdain was coming with a lot of hype, even though he's, I think at the time, like 2-2. But he had some really tough fights against some really tough dudes, and he came out on top a couple times against guys that you might not think he was going to do that too. I think the Korean Superboy was the big one, right? And
Right.
so when people beat certain people, you kind of level them up to that. So going into that fight, I was worried that he had the abilities to beat me, but at the same time, he's like 25, and I'm like, man, I'm 32 years old. I've been doing this for a long time. I can't let this kid come in here and beat me, even though I was the one kind of going in there because it was short notice for me.
What do you point to? I mean, obviously the run that you're on. I know you had the one setback, but I mean, it's been a great stretch of your career, right? I mean, is it the experience? Is it something that you changed? I mean, what is it that everything seems to be clicking now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the first, I was 1-1 in the UFC a long time ago, around the Ultimate Fighter, and then I ran into a 0-3 run. But if you look at those three guys, I took the Devontae Smith up a weight class against a guy who had 8 knockouts, and he was like 8-1 at the time and got knocked out. And I took that short notice, like it was a 10-day fight or 10-day notice fight. And then the next guy was Grant Dawson, who, if you look at him, he's like undefeated in the UFC, and he moved up a weight class now. And so, and I had, there were some circumstances on that fight as well, physically for me. But and then I fought Julio Arce, who's beat some of the best. I mean, he has a win over Dan Ige. He moved down a weight class, but these guys are no slouches. So I went 0-3 against really tough dudes, and I also thought I was winning that fight with Julio Arce until I got knocked out. So I don't think it was any kind of problems that I was having. I think it was just the competition was really good, and I never had really game plan fights. I just kind of go in there. I know how to fight. I just go in there and just let the fight happen. And I think in those fights, I did that too much. The last few fights, the Sean Woodson fight was obviously a short notice fight too. But even in that short notice, I had more of a game plan going into that fight than some of my other fights previously. So I think just game planning and kind of training smarter as well. I used to go spar and just beat the dog shit out of my training partners. We'd both get in and get out and feel like we did more than a fight because we just beat each other up so much. And so I've kind of toned that back down a little bit and been a little bit more intimate with my sparring. Instead of having a bunch of different sparring partners and my coaches trying to watch me on a huge mat with a bunch of other fighters, we go in a little early. We get a cage. I do 3 rounds with the same guy so I can, I can adjust in between rounds instead of having just a fight. So I think just more of that specific training.
Before you started on this run, right? I mean, had you started thinking about like what else is there? It's like, do I have other skills that I can make a living at, or like what was it?
Yeah, I went to college for a couple of years. I was, I was going towards the road of being an accountant. My mom's an accountant, so I was going to do the same thing. And then got into fighting, turned professional, and decided, hey, I can be a professional now as a fighter. I can't be a professional fighter when I'm 40. I could be an accountant when I'm 40, so I can do those things later down the line. But yeah, you financially start thinking about these things. I'm married. I'm 32. We're thinking about having a kid soon. So it's like I can't just be pushing this hobby above, making a financial, situation for my family. So right before that, I was thinking, maybe there's Bellator, maybe there's these other big organizations I can maybe slide into there. But I was coming off a 3-fight losing streak. So I just told myself, you know what, if I got to go back to these regional shows, maybe I will, I'm just going to train my ass off and I'm going to beat the dog crap out of these guys. And if I'm going to have to do that, I'm going to do the best of my abilities. So I was training my butt off, fighting Sean Woodson, 3-day notice. It was a 3-day notice, but it was kind of like a 5-week camp, and so, because I put myself through it, I made sure I was in shape in case this was going to happen. And my manager was on top of me doing that as well, saying that, hey, you might get an opportunity. And I was thinking, I'm 1-4 in the UFC. There's no way they're going to call me. He's like, I'm telling you, man, Sean likes you. Let's get you, if you're ready, you're in Vegas, you have your medicals done, you're in shape, you can make the weight. They're going to slide you in. There's a lot of people falling out of these cards with the whole COVID back then. So luckily for me, I think I was like the 3rd week in a row, and I was like on a list of like 3 guys, each week. And they would pass on me. And then they actually passed on me with the Sean Woodson fight. They went with Daniel Pineda. And then, but I think he said that he was going to fail the COVID testing or something. And so I was actually the second or the third choice or whatever it was, and luckily for me, I was able to capitalize on that. And then yeah, like you said, besides the Doo Ho Choi fight, 3 out of 4 has been really great, and 2 of them short notice. And the Doo Ho Choi was a bit of a lapse in judgment on where I should have kept the fight, but no. And besides that, I'm happy even with those 4 fights.
Nice. I guess his life a lot better right now than it was maybe 2 years ago?
Oh, 100%. Me and my wife, during the COVID, we had moved from our house into an apartment, and we said, hey, let's just save money, and let's try to, let's do this and this and this. And literally, we had moved June, and I think I fought Sean Woodson June 22nd or something. So, and I got a bonus on that fight. So we went from, minus, $10,000-$15,000 in credit card debt, just all these things, to making close to 80 grand that night, and was able to pay off a bunch of stuff and put some money in the bank, and then getting a win over Nate Landwehr in the way I did, and then also obviously with the Jourdain and getting another good finish over him. And it's not even the money, it's just just understanding that I like, when you fight, you're like, man, I deserve to be in the UFC, I deserve to be here, and then you get there and you fail sometimes, and it's just like it can be a big mental frustration. And so for me, just getting back to where I feel like I belong, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but I feel like I should be winning more than I'm losing, and I wasn't doing that. And I still don't have it. I'm 4-5 in the UFC, so I'm hoping to get a win over Peterson and even that out at the very least.
Nice. Peterson doesn't seem to like you very much. You said you were trolling him a little. Were you sliding in his DMs or? Yeah,
for sure. The whole situation with that, it was, I fought Choi and lost, and I was just looking at featherweights. I was writing down a list of names of guys that would be good opponents for me, and not necessarily just good opponents. I was looking for exciting guys, and Peterson is one of those guys. Caceres is one of those guys. These type of guys is what I'm looking for. And Jourdain was one of those guys. I just got lucky that I was able to slide in short notice with him, and. But with Choi, I lost with Choi, and I was looking for guys to fight. And Peterson had just beat Huber and had called out Nate Landwehr. And I was all like, oh, that's cool. That'll be a good fight. And then I had looked on UFC News Alerts a few days later, and Landwehr got booked up. And so I'm like, well, shoot, if Landwehr's booked up, then maybe Peterson will fight me. So I called out, so I just DM'd him. And I was like, hey, man, October, November, December, whatever month you want, if you were willing to fight, I'd be willing to do it. I got respect for you, whatever. It was a nice DM. It wasn't anything. I wasn't trolling him. I wasn't talking shit. I wasn't doing anything like that. Just completely ignored me, and I was like, all right, well, maybe he doesn't want to fight. And then I had posted on my Instagram another nice post. It was like, hey, UFC, maybe book this fight. And I tagged him in it, just ignored me. And then I'm like, you know what? And my manager was all like, yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to fight you or whatever the situation is. I'm like, well, I guess you gotta start trolling people maybe. Maybe that's how you gotta do it. So I had posted on some of his things, and I don't know time-wise when that was, but then I ended up getting the Jourdain fight, so I was like, I completely forgot about Peterson. And then I fought Jourdain, and then they asked me to fill in again short notice against Mike Trevino, who's fighting on the same card. Wasn't able to do it. My shin was pretty messed up from the fight, so I had to heal up, but I completely forgot about Peterson. Then my manager called me, and he's like, how much do you love me? And I'm like, well, Jason, of course I love you, man. You're back in the UFC. You've done everything for me. And he's like, well, we got the Peterson fight February 5th, which was 4 months from when he had told me. So I was like, not super happy with the length of the camp, but was happy I got the fight that I was asking for earlier. But then he wants to go say I was, talking shit and that I'm a weirdo and this and that. But I was just looking for a fight, and I was being respectable about it. And I was only trolling him because he completely ignored me. And I thought that was kind of disrespectful. If someone DM'd me about a fight, even if he would have told me, hey, man, it doesn't work good for my time. It doesn't work. My coach doesn't think it's a good fight. I wouldn't have posted that. I wouldn't have said a word to anybody. Like I'm just not a call out kind of guy. And so the fact that he thinks that I'm like some asshole for doing that, just it's confusing to me.
Last thing for me, I guess, knowing that this is a fight that you wanted because you were looking for exciting fights, is that what you're anticipating? I mean, do you feel this is going to be a fight of the night type fight, or do you feel like given all that's transpired, now you want to go in there and like finish him and destroy him?
Oh, I'm never thinking about round to round. I'm always thinking finish. I don't like to go to the scorecards. If you look at my record, my finish rate's pretty high, and it's almost identical with submissions and knockouts. So I'm always looking for a finish, and that has nothing to do with any animosity or respect or whatever the situation is. I'm gonna go in there and fight to my abilities. But he is one of those guys that presses forward, can take damage, seems to have a chin on him, and he gets a little crazy sometimes, and he's tough and he's durable, and I think I bring the same kind of attributes to the fight as well, and am willing to press the action and see where it goes. I don't think either one of us necessarily care on shooting a shot. I think we're just gonna stand in the pocket and swing. So I'm looking forward to it.